For 30 years, late-night television answered to one man. If you wanted to break through, you sat across from him. If you wanted to stay relevant, you survived his couch. Night after night, Johnny Carson didn't just host The Tonight Show, he controlled the room.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Johnny.
But what made him untouchable wasn't the monologue or the questions. It was his mastery of the unexpected. A joke dying mid-air, a guest going off script, a moment no producer could plan. How do you turn chaos into legend? How do you save a moment while it's falling apart in real time? The answer is instinct, timing, and a presence so sharp it could rescue disaster with a pause and a glance. What you're about to see are 15 moments that prove why no one has ever replaced Johnny Carson, when television stopped being scripted and became unforgettable. Don Rickles breaks the cigarette box. Don Rickles was not a guest on The Tonight Show.
Don Rickles.
I did not see the show
Don
last
Rickles did it last night.
Are you putting me on now?
No. Don Rickles did it last night on the show.
What the hell did he do with it? The wood is broken.
He was a force of nature that Carson periodically unleashed on his audience. The man had no filter, no fear, and absolutely no respect for the invisible rules that governed network television. But one night, Rickles created a moment that went beyond his usual insults. He broke something sacred. While filling in as guest host during one of Carson's vacations, Rickles made Johnny's famous cigarette box the target of a running joke. He kept slamming it on the desk for emphasis. Then, it actually broke. The next night, when Carson returned and discovered what happened, he did something unprecedented. He stopped his own show, walked off his set, and marched across the hall to where Rickles was taping CPO Sharkey. Carson burst onto that set mid-scene, confronted Rickles in front of a completely different audience, and demanded to know what happened to his cigarette box. The moment was electric because nobody knew if Carson was genuinely angry or playing along. Rickles stammered and tried to explain while his own show ground to a halt.
I'm Don Rickles. What do you want? What do you want? I said I'm doing The Tonight Show, and this is my friend Harry Goins has been with me. And he was a black man, that made him nervous.
Yes.
Carson held up the broken box like evidence in a trial. The audience on both shows went absolutely insane. It became one of those legendary Tonight Show moments where the line between real life and television completely disappeared. Jane Fonda and the cat joke. Jane Fonda walked onto The Tonight Show for what everyone assumed would be a standard promotional interview. Then she brought up Zsa Zsa Gabor. The moment Fonda started telling this particular story, you could see Carson's posture change. His body language shifted from relaxed host to full network television defense mode.
Somebody gets a little paranoid. That can happen. I wonder if it still goes on.
I think what it is that if
I think
someone...
the country all ought to get on a party line. Wouldn't that be great? Go back to the old party line so everybody can listen to everybody and there'll be no secrets at all.
If the people in positions of power, like the president...
The story involved a very specific joke that allegedly happened on his show years earlier. Fonda explained that her son had told her about a famous Carson moment involving Zsa Zsa Gabor appearing with a cat on her lap. According to the story, Gabor had asked Johnny if he wanted to pet her, and the punchline was crude enough that it could not be repeated on broadcast television. Carson's response was masterful. He had to acknowledge the joke without actually saying it. He had to react to something that everyone in the audience understood, while pretending the words themselves were too inappropriate to confirm. You could watch him calculating in real time. The segment became hilarious precisely because of what was not being said. The audience knew exactly what the joke was. Carson knew they knew. But the rules of television meant he had to dance around it. It was a perfect example of how Carson could turn an awkward moment into comedy gold simply by letting the tension build. Rodney Dangerfield breaks. Carson Rodney Dangerfield arrived in 1978, carrying that trademark nervous energy. The hunched shoulders, the constant fidgeting, the sense that he might fall apart at any moment. It was all an act, of course. Underneath that anxious exterior was one of the sharpest comedic minds in the business. He launched into his set, and the one-liners started flying so fast, the audience barely had time to breathe. Between laughs, he talked about his wife, his drinking, his complete lack of respect from everyone around him.
Well, with cigarettes, my wife and I, we made a deal, my wife and I. We only smoke after 6. I got the same pack now since 1975.
Each joke built on the last, creating a rhythm that felt relentless and perfectly controlled. Then he hit a punchline so perfectly timed that Johnny Carson physically fell out of his chair. Not a small stumble. Carson lost his balance completely and went down while the audience erupted. Dangerfield barely paused. He kept going, kept firing jokes while Carson tried to compose himself. The moment proved something important about both men. Dangerfield was operating at a level of comedic precision that could break through even Carson's legendary composure. And Carson was secure enough to let himself be the punchline. Don Rickles roasts everyone. By 1991, Don Rickles did not arrive as a guest so much as an event. Carson and Ed McMahon would settle into their positions like men bracing for impact because they knew exactly what was coming. Rickles treated that desk like a boxing ring, and he always came out swinging. This particular appearance happened as Carson was preparing to step down from The Tonight Show. Rickles immediately seized on that vulnerability. He started with quick jabs about Johnny's age, his suit, the idea that retirement was just a polite word for being pushed out. He told Carson to stop trying to be graceful because everyone knew the network had asked him to leave. Then he turned to Ed McMahon and delivered compliments that somehow felt more insulting than his insults. The segment became a rhythm of Rickles firing and Carson reacting, and the audience watching two people who clearly trusted each other push right up to the edge of what was acceptable. Rickles called him a Chinese yo-yo. He suggested the prom was over. He implied that everyone backstage was already packing their things. Each line landed because there was genuine affection underneath all of it. These were three professionals who had been doing this dance for decades. They knew exactly how far they could go without breaking something important. That trust made the whole thing work. You could feel the danger, but you also knew nobody was actually going to get hurt. The New Year's Eve signs.
I always do on New Year's Eve.
Well, I've been with you. It's New Year's Eve. I remember one year Ed called Paul Masson and said, "I don't care if it's before its time, I'm thirsty."
New Year's Eve broadcasts always carried a different energy. The audience at home was distracted, partying, probably not paying full attention to whatever was on television. Carson leaned into that reality instead of fighting it. He set up a simple visual gag where he would hold up signs designed to grab the attention of viewers who might be drifting away from the screen. The bit started politely enough. Friendly reminders that the show was still happening. Then the signs got progressively more desperate and direct. Are you still watching? Please do not change the channel. Your mother called and wants you to watch. Carson's deadpan delivery made every sign funnier than it had any right to be. He was not overselling it. He was just a man slowly losing his dignity on national television, holding up increasingly pathetic pleas for attention while the audience laughed at his fake desperation. One of the signs malfunctioned and would not open properly, which only made the whole thing better. Carson had to fight with the prop while maintaining his composure, turning a technical failure into another laugh. The segment worked because it acknowledged something true about the viewing experience. New Year's Eve audiences are barely paying attention. Instead of pretending otherwise, Carson made that truth the joke itself. When the monologue bombs, Carson's monologues usually moved like clockwork. Joke, setup, punchline, move to the next one. The rhythm was so consistent that audiences knew exactly what to expect. But every so often, a joke would land with a thud so loud you could hear it echo through the studio silence. Those moments were fascinating because of how Carson handled them. He would deliver a punchline that clearly sounded better when the writers pitched it. The studio would go noticeably quiet. That awkward dead air that makes most performers panic. Carson did the opposite. He would pause and acknowledge the silence directly.
Do you get sensitive about the fact that people say he'll never take a serious controversy?
Well, I have an answer to that. I said, now, tell me the last time that Jack Benny, Red Skelton, any comedian, used his show to do serious issues. That's not what I'm there for. Can't they see that?
He would reset physically, then fire a quick tag aimed at himself or the writers. The audience would immediately relax and laugh at the acknowledgement. The failed joke became less important than watching him steer the room back into comfort. It was a masterclass in recovery. Most comedians try to pretend bombs did not happen. Carson made the bomb itself into content. Doc Severinson's Thanksgiving Revenge. Thanksgiving week in 1979 brought an unusual configuration to The Tonight Show desk. Doc Severinson was sitting in for Ed McMahon, which already made the dynamic feel slightly off balance. Carson and Doc started comparing holiday plans. Then Doc asked a simple question about whether Johnny actually helps his wife prepare the Thanksgiving turkey. Carson fired back with what he thought was the perfect jab, saying it was just like Doc helping Mrs. Severinson prepare the turkey. Doc did not miss a beat. He calmly reminded Johnny that there was no Mrs. Severinson, turning Carson's punchline into an instant self-own that detonated the entire studio. From there, the segment became a runaway improv duel. They riffed on stuffing, divorce, writing checks to ex-wives. Carson was laughing so hard, he reached under the desk for tissues, while Doc kept landing clean tags. It proved that the Tonight Show magic was not just about Carson. It was about chemistry between people who knew each other well enough to go off script. The Laughing Bird. Joan Embury was a regular presence on The Tonight Show, bringing animals from the San Diego Zoo for quick educational segments.
To disturb him, because sometimes birds do get a little put off by applause or strange movements.
I hear they never talk around you.
It has been a long dry spell with me.
Carson would pet something, ask a few questions, and move on. It was reliable content. Then she brought a bird that changed everything. The bird made a laughing sound. Not a squawk or a chirp, but something weirdly human, like it was genuinely amused by what was happening. Embury tried to continue her explanation, but the bird kept punctuating the moment at exactly the wrong times. Every time she made a serious point, the bird would laugh. Every time Carson tried to ask a question, the bird would laugh. It was like having a tiny comedian interrupting the interview with perfectly timed heckles. Carson started cracking up. The audience was losing it. Nobody could have planned it. The timing was so perfect, so consistently disruptive, that it became comedy gold.
Howard?
Yes. Did you hear that?
Said hello.
He did.
He said hello.
Nice way to start a conversation.
Carson just let it happen. He knew better than to fight against genuine chaos when it was working this well. Rickles versus Sinatra. Frank Sinatra's presence changed the temperature of any room he entered. He was not just a celebrity. He was an institution, and everyone treated him accordingly with respect that bordered on fear. Don Rickles stepped into that charged atmosphere and did what he always did. He refused to act intimidated by anyone, no matter how powerful they were. The exchange started like playful admiration between two legends. Then Rickles began poking Sinatra with insults that would have sounded absolutely wild coming from anyone else. He called him old. He made jokes about his hair, his singing, his entire career. He treated Frank Sinatra like just another guy in the room. Sinatra's reactions were the key to the whole segment working. He stayed measured and amused, with just enough occasional sternness to keep the audience guessing. Everyone was constantly reading his face to see how far the leash extended. Carson sat in the middle like a referee at a boxing match, enjoying the tension, but ready to intervene if things tipped toward real hostility. You could feel the danger building throughout the segment. Maybe Rickles would go too far. Maybe Sinatra would stop finding it funny. But the line never got crossed. It was two powerful personalities negotiating control on live television. Buddy Hackett pushes the line.
My buddy, my buddy.
I have so many things to open with, I don't know what to start.
Well, first of all,
What?
You see, now that's what I don't have. You got a theme song.
My buddy.
My buddy, and you walk out and right away.
Buddy Hackett arrived. With a reputation for being slightly too wild for polite network television. The audience knew this. Carson knew this. The anticipation of potential disaster was already building before Hackett said a single word. He started with divorce material that was personal and exaggerated, the kind of stories that made Carson lean back and start monitoring the line between funny and inappropriate. Then Hackett moved into a bath story, and you could feel him testing exactly how much he could imply without getting stopped. Every sentence pushed a little further. Carson's job became gently steering the conversation, letting Hackett be Hackett, while keeping the segment from becoming something NBC would regret. The laughs built because Hackett's storytelling was physical and shameless. He committed completely to every moment. The audience sensed he was flirting with too much the entire time. Part of the entertainment was watching Carson calculate in real time whether to let it continue or cut to commercial early. Hackett was pushing boundaries, but doing it with such charm that genuine offense felt impossible. Jonathan Winters and the glued cat. Jonathan Winters existed in a different comedic universe than almost anyone else who appeared on The Tonight Show. His energy was chaotic by design, unpredictable, and fully committed to whatever bit he was building. The glued cat story started like a normal household mishap, something small and stupid that happens when you are trying to fix something around the house. Then Winters started acting it out with full theatrical commitment. He did voices for every character involved. He physically became the panicking homeowner, the confused cat, the horrified wife discovering what happened. The story kept escalating. Each detail got its own voice and physicality until it felt less like an anecdote and more like a live one-man show happening on Carson's couch. Carson did not try to control it or steer Winters back to normal interview mode. He recognized that the chaos was the entire point. The audience got pulled deeper into the story with every escalation. By the end, Winters had turned a dumb accident into a full theatrical event using nothing but his own body and voice. Carson was laughing so hard he could barely stay in his chair.
That happened to you too, huh?
You give the kid a couple of pesos.
Nah, but drinking is bad, Johnny. It's bad for your health. You know, that's what's important, your health. You know, oh, yeah, I'm still heavy. I can't lose any weight. Forget it, will you?
Phrases you'll never hear. Some Tonight Show bits relied on elaborate setups and celebrity guests. Others worked because of pure simplicity executed perfectly. The Phrases You Will Never Hear segment from 1989 was the second type. Carson set it up like a simple list. He would read phrases that sound like they could be real statements, but take sharp turns into absurdity. The first example set the tone. "That is Mr. Rogers to you, and stay the hell out of my neighborhood." Carson read each line with calm authority, which made every absurd phrase land harder than it should have. The bit moved fast, one phrase after another, never stalling. Ed McMahon's reactions helped punctuate the segment, while Carson maintained his deadpan throughout. The comedy felt timeless because it was built on timing and delivery rather than topical references. Simple premise, perfect execution. Louis Anderson's breakthrough, Louis Anderson walked onto the Tonight Show stage as a relatively unknown comedian, with that soft-spoken, slightly nervous everyman energy that immediately made him relatable. He started building material from his own life, family dynamics, personal insecurity, everyday discomfort that everyone watching at home could recognize. The pacing was slower than a one-liner comic, but it was deliberate. He walked the audience into each punchline instead of throwing jokes at them rapid fire. You could feel the room shifting as the set continued. The initial reaction of "who is this guy?" transformed into "we trust this guy" by the midpoint. The laughs got bigger because the audience was investing in him as a person, not just reacting to isolated punchlines. Carson's attention was locked in because he recognized the classic Tonight Show discovery pattern. You could see Carson nodding along because he knew he was watching someone who would have a real career after this appearance. Drew Carey earns the nod. Drew Carey was unfamiliar to most viewers during his Tonight Show debut. He carried that regular guy presence that does not scream showbiz polish. He looked like someone you might actually know in real life, which made his comedy feel grounded. His set built steadily from observations that seemed to come from actual experience rather than a professional writer's room. Each laugh made him more comfortable on stage, and you could feel the audience deciding in real time that this guy was worth paying attention to. Carson watched closely because the show had always treated first-time stand-up spots like auditions in front of America. When the crowd got fully behind Carey, it became that classic Tonight Show trajectory where a comedian earns something bigger than applause. At the end, Carson gave him that nod, the one that said, "Come back soon." You could see in Carson's face that he knew Drew Carey was going to make it big. Johnny Carson didn't just host a show, he commanded a stage where anything could happen. And somehow, it always did. 30 years behind that desk, thousands of episodes, countless unscripted moments that became legend. But the truth is, we've only scratched the surface. The stories behind the laughter, the disasters turned brilliance, and the chemistry that couldn't be faked. Those moments run deeper than any clip can show. So the question remains, in a world chasing viral hits and scripted comedy, can anyone ever truly capture what Carson had? Or was that magic something the medium itself has lost forever?